This is a space to share and discuss educational topics with guests who have a passion for teaching and an interest in learning. Hi, my name is Gina Gillen, and I want to welcome you to Coffee Talk by CertiProf. In this episode, we're going to talk about OKRs. Learn how to set meaningful goals, why OKR implementations fail, and the relationships between OKRs and culture. Today, we have the pleasure of talking to Niroshan Madampitige. He's an agile coach, agile delivery expert, and a keynote speaker. Hi, Niroshan. Welcome to our Coffee Talk.
Hi, Gina. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for your time. Niroshan, can you start by introducing yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So first thing, thank you for inviting me for this particular talk. It's indeed my privilege to be here. Yes, if I talk about myself, I have been in the agile industry for a decade. A little more than a decade working on the agile coaching aspect. So currently, what my mandate would be a few things. One, I'm working as an agile coach, basically working with startups, scale-ups, as well as corporate organizations to help these organizations grow in their agile adoption, agile transformations. Second, I'm also an OKR consultant. So I started my OKR consultancy journey 3 years ago, and it's been a hit. So at the moment, I'm promoting a lot on the OKR coaching perspective because I know that it's going to add a lot of value to the teams and organizations. Thirdly, Gina, I'm also a keynote speaker. I do talk about personal branding together with agile and lean concepts. Therefore, I would consider myself as a keynote speaker on motivational perspective as well as agile strategies.
Thank you so much, Niroshan. Okay, so let's start talking about OKRs. So OKRs are objective key results. And so we have the OKRs, and then we have the traditional approaches to goals, which are the ones that you said annually, that are tied to goals. So how do OKR differ from traditional approaches to goals?
Excellent. I think it's a great start, great place to start with. Just like, when we build up a house, like we got to put a strong foundation in the right way. So same way, I think, if I answer your question, it's very, very critical that we understand what exactly OKR talks about. My observations is majority of the organizations, teams, and individuals as well overlook certain basics, right? These basics are facilitated really well through OKR adoption, the topic OKR. So if I talk about the differences, right? First, let me help you understand what we do in a traditional setup if we are to set up goals personally as well as organizationally. Now, if you think of your annual goals, right? What we do is you get so eager at the end of the year, probably on the 31st of December is the peak time where everyone is so keen to, define their goals for the next year. But traditionally, what we tend to do is just come up with vague statements and call them goals, right? So we may use different formats like SMART objectives, think big, act small. There are different frameworks that will allow you to define objectives, right? But traditional approaches don't allow you to go beyond than setting an objective. For me, an objective is just a direction, nothing more than that, right? So OKR starts there. And the good news is that it doesn't stop there, right? So as opposed to a traditional method of goal setting, in OKRs, what we do is we go one step ahead and ask ourselves, hey, think critically. think about the specific key results you want to achieve by going in this direction, right? So traditionally, we just stop at a point where we define the objectives, which is a direction, which will tell us where to go, how which direction you need to take. But we stop there, right? In OKRs, what happens is we critically look at what we are trying to do in terms of the direction, and then insist that we should come up with specific key results. So I think this is one of the key differences between the traditional goal setting methodologies and OKRs. That's one. The other thing is we also know that OKRs is pretty agile. Why do we say so? OKR is a collaborative goal setting framework. It's not a framework where the top management sit alone and then define the objectives for the entire company. No, it's a collaborative approach, right? So this is different from the traditional approaches that way as well. The other thing is it's a critical thinking framework. It is not something that will want you to be comfortable in setting your goals. It wants you to think loud, think critically about what you want to achieve, and ask the tough questions, right? Example, now even again, right? If you look at this particular talk, one thing that I generally ask when I'm invited for a talk is, hey, what specifically I want to achieve? And you ask the same question, right? So, and we come to a common ground where I ask that question very critically. So if we don't ask that question, what happens is we might talk for 1 hour, but the value that we deliver will not be as expected as for the given opportunity, right? It might be just touching the surface. So being critical, you definitely ask yourself, hey, what specific outcomes, what specific key results that you want to achieve? That's the next one. So the last thing that I want to mention there is OKRs are different from another great aspect, that is the cycle. So in a traditional goal setting framework, we don't have a cycle that we want to follow. We define the goals and communicate that and stop there, right? So therefore, what happens is you set the goals, perfect goals, right? Perfect objectives, but you don't have cadences that allows you to check in weekly basis, monthly basis, right? And it is a big missing point, because when you don't do that, what happens is you just throw away your goals and wait for the results, and you never keep track of them, right? So OKRs allows you to have a regular cadences across the implementation and insist that you have to go back and look at what you are doing. So if there is any adjustment, any correction that needs to be made, you got to make it then and there. So for me, if I just summarize, OKR is a collaborative framework, whereas the traditional method is one directional. OKR is a critical thinking framework, whereas the traditional method is just asking you to be vague. It doesn't demand that you got to be critical. Third, it is agile, as opposed to the traditional methods are not agile. They are just waterfall, right? They follow waterfallish approach. Fourth one, which is the last one I want to mention, is it has key results and OKR cycle that are not present in the traditional goal setting frameworks.
One of the things that I actually like about OKRs is I was watching John Doerr one time, and he said, I would rather have a team that shoots for Mars, because I know that even if they don't achieve it, they're going to get to the moon. Because one of the things that I like about OKRs is that since they're not tied to bonuses or compensation, that it builds that risk-taking culture where it's okay, like you were saying, to stretch a little bit for something almost impossible. And you cannot even quite make it, but still it has a considerable accomplishment. So now that we heard about OKRs and what is the difference between between the more traditional goals, what would you say are some of OKR superpowers?
Well, I like that term, superpowers. And so the first time I got to know about this management methodology, right? I pretty much got hooked into it, just seeing one thing, that is focus, right? So this is mostly lacking in majority of cases. If you look at any organization, what is mostly missing is the focus, right? Because we want to do 1,000 things. The problem is that we don't focus on the right goals. So when you lose the focus, when you lose the focus, what happens is, you might do 100 things, but your outcome is suboptimal. It's not going to be the most optimal outcome that you can expect as an individual, as a team, as an organization. So if I just name it, I would say focus and commitment, right? Now, I want to add commitment into the same superpower because focus doesn't work alone, right? Example, I'll tell you an example, right? Now, in this talk, if you want to focus on this particular superpower, right, we would focus on the talk, refine the agenda, ensure that we just pick up the most valuable topics to be discussed, just because we want to focus, right? Second thing is, once we focus on it, right, you and me probably have to commit to that focus area so that we don't, in that case, right? So what I generally do when I attend a program like this, I would keep all the distractions away, right? I'm sure you are doing the same thing. So that's basically the commitment, right? Because I'm 100% committed to get this perfectly done. So there is no way I can do another thing. It can be the most little thing that I can think of, right? It might be even something like looking at my mobile phone to check my social media. If the moment I try to do that, what I lose is the focus, right? The moment I lose the focus, I'm not committed enough. So I think this is one of the big problems that most of the organizations go through. The second superpower is, again, a pain point for many organizations. Even John Doerr in his book highlights this very nicely. He says one of the other superpowers that OKRs allow Google to grow as a business is alignment and connection. So if you look at any given organization, right, majority of the organizations struggle on this. What do I mean? Leadership has a greater vision. They come up with the greatest strategic plan, right? But when it cascaded down to the individuals and teams, one thing we lose is the alignment. What is communicated to the teams and individuals is not what the strategic leadership is thinking of, right? Or vice versa. Now, in most of the agile organizations, right, I think a lot of companies just assume that agile adoption is a team thing. So therefore, they endorse that job to the teams and ask them to do well, right? Become high-performing teams. But above the teams, right, the program and portfolio and strategic level, they don't have a commitment towards agile adoption. So what happens is, right, so they're not going to do any good because teams are just isolated and expected to do magics. So how it works is, right, whatever leadership decides that they want to become will need to be the same thing that the entire organization need to achieve, right, across all the levels. So OKR gives you that capability. None of the mainstream agile frameworks will allow you gain that alignment, right? Example, if you look at Kanban, Scrum, things like that, frameworks like that, what they do is they will give you a set of practices at the team level. Now, the one of the challenges we face as agile organization is not knowing how to scale it up to the leadership, how to scale it up to the stakeholders. This is where OKR comes in. So it allows from leadership team to the individuals to have aligned plans, right? And when you have the alignment, the next thing that is possible is connection. It allows you to connect with the CEO. It allows the CEO and the board of directors to connect with the individuals of the organization, because we talk about the same thing. We have a single language, right? We say, as an organization, we want to get here, and team knows the same thing, and team acknowledges that is the same thing that we are trying to achieve, right? So I want to just highlight two more things, Gina, right? Third one is accountability. So this is one of the biggest learnings as well. A lot of organizations struggle with the organizational charts, traditional ways of defining the authority and the delegation. But the problem is that the organization charts don't allow us to create the clarity that we require, right? So what we mentioned there is the designation, right? But what I end up doing is something else. I might be recruited as an agile coach, but at the end, I might be responsible for various other things outside the agile coaching, right? The question is, hey, where does that reflect, right? How does someone else know what exactly I'm doing, right? I might be involved in training. I might be involved in organizational level strategic discussions. I might be involved in tweaking the process. None of them will be represented in a chart like org chart, right? So my suggestion for there would be like, look for accountability. How? Create an accountability chart. So this is one of my recommendations. The fourth superpower is excellence. I mean, stretching for the excellence, right? Again, I'm referencing what John Dewar said here. He says, this is one of the four superpowers if any organization want to target exponential growth. And he says, this is one of the big reasons why Google was able to gain 10x growth, right? So you got to stretch, right? Think of it this, right? So personally, I think from the time CertiProf started, right? You started your entrepreneurial journey. You started as a professional. What allowed you to grow, what allowed me to grow personally is the fact that I wanted to stretch myself, right? So if I did not do something that I'm uncomfortable of, I will never be able to grow, right? It's going to be a very slow growth. The moment I pick up the most challenging thing, it allows me to learn a lot, right? And speed up my growth journey. So that's why we call it a superpower, because OKRs should be used if you really want to stretch yourself. If you want to be comfortable and achieve the goals that is being set, don't go for OKRs. Go for something else, right? OKRs should be used if you want to stretch yourself as an organization. So that's my stance,
Yeah, I love that. And like you mentioned, focus. I believe I read that when Google was doing their OKRs, like their objective was like, one of their first objectives was to be the most used browser, I believe. And their objective was only based on users. And they just kept doing it every year after year. So one of the things that I wanted to say, in order to remember the superpowers that you just mentioned, we can go by FACTS. FACTS. So we have focus, alignment, the commitment, the tracking, like you said, that differentiates from the OKRs and the traditional goals. And then lastly, as you mentioned, we have the stretching. So if we want to remember those, we just can spell FACTS.
Lovely. Thanks for putting that equation. I like it.
So what is the relationship, as you mentioned, stretching? What is the relationship between ambition and goals?
Well, quite paradoxical question, I would say. But let me try to answer. Right now, this is my stance. I'm mostly to ignore a confusion like that, because I think most of the organization try to battle between the words, right? But I think what you ask is a valid question, because there's a lot of confusion about these terms in a lot of organizations. So if I if I just talk about my stance there. Now, if you look at even the dictionary, Oxford Dictionary, about the term ambition, what the dictionary says, it is something that you want to do or achieve very much. That's the English definition. From there, right, if you ask the next question, hey, what is a goal? Goal is definitely more specific than that, right? An ambition is something that you want to achieve very much. From there, if you want to go into the definition of a goal, you could say it is a very specific outcome-driven ambition that you want to achieve, right? So you try to be more specific, come from a vague ambition to a specific outcome that you want to achieve, right? Now, being in the modern world, we got to talk about the value. For me, goal is value-driven target with specific outcomes to be achieved, right? So if you define it that way, you see a clear difference between an ambition and a goal. Ambition could be vague, right? Example, I could say, I want to be a speaker. Nothing wrong with it. It's ambitious, right? I'm ambitious to be a speaker. I might say I want to be someone like Tony Robbins. Nothing wrong with it. But it's just that it does not create enough clarity for anyone to operate himself or herself. So goal can be more specific. It can be timely. It can allow you to measure your progress towards what you want to become. So for me, Gina, that's basically the difference that I see between ambitions and goal. So both are useful, right? So when we talk about OKRs, we also say there are two types of OKRs, right? One, aspirational OKRs. Second, committed OKRs. What do I mean? Aspirational OKRs are ambitions, right? They are ambitions that teams and organizations would like to achieve. There's no guarantee that you can achieve them because there's high uncertainty involved because it's kind of a vague aspiration you're talking about, right? So if you want to go from that vague, abstract goal to a specific goal, you can make a commitment. So I'll tell you one example, right? There's a difference between when I say I want to be a motivational speaker versus I want to be a speaker who earns $1,000 per hour for my keynotes. Very specific, right? I could call myself a speaker after talking in a very small gathering, even free of charge, right?
Right.
Now, the problem there is it's just an ambition which is vaguely defined, right? So if I want to go specific, then I go and define a goal. I would say this is exactly what I want to become, right? They're very connected, but this is what the difference I would see. If someone asks, okay, I don't want an ambition, I want a goal, I would say yes. Let's be specific, right? Let's be timely. We'll put a time box into it and then go for it.
I love that. Like the difference between aspiration and goals and committed goals. That's really good.
Thank you.
Why do OKR implementations fail and how do you overcome them?
Well, I would say it's one of my favorite questions because whenever I tackle any organizational business transformation, this is one of the very first questions I ask. What specific traps are there in that organization, right? So it's a great starting point. I mean, most of the organizations are trapped into different boxes, right? So I think your question is very much important because the moment you ask, hey, what are the things that doesn't allow the organizations to move ahead and be successful in their OKR implementations? So I see the number one reason is being this, right? So if you look at any organization, the very first thing that you need to look at is if they have been able to fix their basics. It's something like this, right? Say, I want to fix my family. I want to make my family a high-performing family. So I have my daughter, my wife, and myself, 3 of us. But we are highly disorganized, right? We don't get up on time. We never turn up to the meetings on time. My wife works, so none of us, I'm just saying, right? None of us would go to office on time, right? We mess up the work. Now, in a situation like that, can we talk about high performance? No, we can't. We got to fix those basics. Similarly, if any organization has fundamental cultural issues, fundamental issues that doesn't allow people to be happy, fundamental issues that doesn't allow the organization to be agile, right? Example, organization is adopting Scrum and they are messing it up, right? Their predictions don't work. They don't deliver the increments on time, and what we deliver is full of errors. Now, the question is, can OKRs help there? No. But this is one of the big problems that I see. So currently, there's a big trend in adopting OKRs. They think it's a silver bullet, right? So pretty much every organization, irrespective of whether they have basic problems to solve or not, go for OKRs. So this is a guaranteed way of failing. Why? Without fixing the basic mechanics, I would say basic agile mechanics, you got to be agile. You can't be traditional and implement OKRs. They don't work together, right? If you want to implement OKRs, you got to be agile, right? You need not follow any particular agile framework, but you got to have that mindset at least. You got to have healthy practices, right? So this is one of the traps. So if you want to get out of that trap, what I suggest is inspect and ask the question, hey, are we doing well on our fundamentals? Example, if you have a toxic culture, if your people are not having enough unity, right? If they are not productive, if they are wasting their time, if they are not able to deliver things on time with the right quality, don't look for OKRs. First, fix those basics. Until you fix those basics, never try to implement OKRs. That's number one. Number two is most of the organizations would fail to differentiate the two types of OKRs. One, aspirational OKRs. Second, committed OKRs. Now, if you mess this up, mix these two things up, it's a guaranteed way of failing. Why? You go and commit for an aspirational OKR. You go to your client, you go to your stakeholders and say, we are going to be this number one organization. It's not a commitment, it's an aspiration, right? If it's a commitment, it is something like, we will be committed to deliver this roadmap within the Q1. Yeah, Q1 2022. That's a commitment. So if you make a commitment, you got to fully focus. You got to live up to your superpowers, right? But if you have committed for an aspirational OKR, it's highly unlikely that you are going to achieve 100% success there. So this is the second reason, right? The third reason is a lot of companies pick up low value OKRs. I mean, they are good in terms of defining an OKR, but they don't deliver enough value. What happens? So your entire capacity and the team is allocated for such OKRs. Team end up working so hard to achieve those OKRs, and they achieve it. Although they achieve them, they don't deliver significant value. So the stakeholders start complaining, hey, I didn't see much coming. I didn't see much value delivered. I didn't see much revenue, right? Why? Organization has been working on low value OKRs. The last one is, right? So this is very key, right? This is one of the commonly seen problems. Most of the organizations don't have sufficient number of key results for their objectives. Example, I would say I want to, let's assume this, right? We want to deliver the roadmap agreed with the stakeholders. Let's say there are 10 items, then 10 initiatives that you are trying to deliver within Q1. So if you don't define enough OKRs for these OKRs, you're going to fail. Why? OKRs, right? So one of the key characteristics of OKR is key results. So if you overlook the key results, if you define just 1 or 2 key results per objective, it's not going to work, right? General recommendation would be coming up with 3 to 5 key results per objective. The reason is that you have flexibility to move within those key results and achieve the best possible. So in a situation where you have 5 key results, if you achieve 4, you are better off, right?
Yeah.
So you have achieved 80%. But if you have 2 key results and you fail 1, what happens? Your success rate is 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So this is huge failure as opposed to failing 1 key result, delivering 4, right? So this is a big problem because, I mean, it is time consuming. Therefore, teams don't spend enough time and energy to define sufficient key results. So I think I spoke about the solutions together with the problems itself. So, right. So
let me ask you something. You mentioned about like teams not delivering value. Do you think is there a problem between leadership not inspiring or not giving the team the sense of purpose to inspire them to reach the right OKRs?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a reason in many cases, if not all. I mean, there'll be some great companies who are facilitating that inspiration. But I would agree that there are a lot of companies who are failing to do so, right? Coming from APAC culture, Gina, I think there's a lot of bureaucracy in a lot of organizations. I think it's not just unique to APAC. All over the world, there is a lot of bureaucracy in the leadership and the different levels. Therefore, leaders mostly fail to inspire their people, right? Without talking about the vibe factor. Now, this is where Simon Sinek stresses the fact that if you are a leader, if you are a leadership team, you got to ensure that your people understand why they need to do what they do.
Why.
Yeah, so that's exactly what you asked. I totally agree that there's a missing point. That's a missing link. Lot of companies fail to inspire and empower people.
Yeah, like I think that's, for me, that's one of the main reason is because leadership, sometimes they're not personally committed to the OKRs. So OKRs are supposed to be a transparent vessel. They're supposed to, everyone in the team, everyone in the organizations are supposed to know everyone's OKR. So if the CEO or leadership, if they don't share their OKRs, if they don't share their accomplishments and failures, if they don't inspire the team, if they don't give the right message of why we are who we are, a good mission statement, then the employees are not inspired. And then, as you mentioned before, then they don't deliver value.
Spot on. I agree. I mean, this is there in most of the organizations. So I think, even the recent agile surveys highlight this as a key issue, one of the top issues, that is leadership misalignment, right? I mean, leadership would like to become a high-performing organization, but they don't provide the right leadership. Right. So teams are pulling into different directions at what they think, and they are not committed enough to drive these transformational efforts. Particularly OKRs implementation got to have a lot of commitment from leadership. Otherwise, it's going to fail.
Completely agree. So now that we're talking about culture, what is the relationship between OKRs and culture? And what are some attributes or values that allow companies to embrace OKR?
Well, great question again. Now, let me remind you of something that Andy Grove mentioned about cultural perspective. Andy Grove is the father of OKRs, the one who invented OKRs. after working on the management methodology called management by objectives, right? MBO. So after seeing some of the loopholes, he said, this doesn't work, right? And he wanted to find out the management methodology, and that happened to be OKR. So he said something very beautiful about the culture. So I'm going to just repeat the same thing that he mentioned, right? Ruthless intellectual honesty, disregard for self-interest, deep allegiance to the team is a must for OKR implementation. So he stresses three things, right? One, intellectual honesty. If I'm not honest enough as an individual, if I'm not genuine enough as an individual working for an organization, there's a major problem. Second, disregard for self-interest. Now, in an organization, I can't have a lot of self-interest, right? So, I mean, this is one of the big problems we face in the modern world, because everyone think about their personal growth more than the company growth, right? It will be two-way, but you have to focus on the organizational growth so that you will automatically gain the benefits. You will automatically become better, right? The third aspect he points out is deep allegiance to the team. So you got to be committed to the team, right? Now I think you get the answer to the question. This is culture, right? These three things mean the culture. So it's how the people perceive themselves, how they think about themselves, what human values they conduct in the organization, right? And how much they are committed to the teamwork. So the moment we miss any of these 3 points, we are missing the link, right? So I would say culture and OKR implementation is kind of together. The moment you don't have the right culture, you have no way of adopting OKRs, because it's a collaborative goal-setting framework. It's an agile framework, right? So agile does not exist when you don't have a good enough culture. It doesn't have to be the greatest culture ever, but it got to be a healthy culture, right? Now, since you asked the problems, Gina, I want to talk about my top 3 picks, right? My number 1 pick is, now companies tend to believe that it's a silver bullet, it's a weapon, right? It's not a weapon, it's just a tool, right? So it does not mean it's going to solve any other problems that you have in your organization. That's why I said, if you want to implement OKR effectively, you got to fix other problems separately, right?
Like you mentioned, fix them before and then work on OKR.
Exactly. Before, as well as, at the same time, outside this, right? While you are, ideally, before you come to OKR implementation, these fundamentals got to be fixed, right? Otherwise, it's going to be a mess. The second thing is, if OKR culture has to support OKRs, we need to get rid of something called dictatorship, right? This is the bureaucratic way of leading people. So what happens in most of the organizations, so-called agile organizations, there'll be the senior leaders who will be driving the decisions, right? They will have to be involved in decision making, but there has to be some level of control allowed for the organizational staff, employees, to make their decisions, right? So I think this is why companies like Google doing great, because that certain part of their day is allocated for their own personal innovation, personal work, right? So this brings a lot of energy and a lot of innovation into the flow, right? So same way, right? When we want to lead our people in the organization, one thing we need to ensure is that we enable a collaborative decision making approach. So leaders got to make certain decisions, but at the same time, they need to listen to people. So you enable the two-way communication while you're making your decisions, right? If the people say, hey, no, don't implement this, we disliked it, right? Leaders got to change it. The moment leaders say, no, who are you to tell this, right? We are the founders. We are the ones who invest money here. You don't understand this, and we are going to implement this. We don't care what you think. That's a dictatorship. It does not work, right? So if the culture is having any sort of dictatorship, it got to be controlled. It might be impossible to get away from it, but you got to control it, right? You got to enable the collaborative way of working where, this is where the flat structure came into play. So at one point, the organizations in the modern era, industrial revolution, believe that we can't be controlling people. So what they said is go for a flat structure, right? That neither works for me, right? I mean, just a flat structure is a mess, right? You have to have good level of control within your organization, but allowing two-way communication. Anyone in the organization at any level should be able to contribute towards a decision making. So this got to be there. I think the third and the most important, third but not the least, right? It is the fact that OKR culture should be something where we believe less is more. But our traditional belief is that we got to do more work to be successful. So this is the same trap that we are in as individuals, professionals, right? If I try to do 10 things in a given year, I'm going to fail. If I pick, these are the top 3 investments, these are the top 3 priorities that I'm going to tackle in this year, I'm going to make exponential success. I'll tell you an example, right? If I want to write a book, together with that, I might pick 2 more priorities or few more based on your capacity, but you need to decide what's your optimal capacity. So I can't be doing these 3 things, including writing a book, launching it on Amazon, launching OKR certification, launching another program, doing all these things. I will not be able to have more strategic priorities accommodated into my agenda, right? So I need to make a call. What's the most optimal amount of work that I can carry out as an individual? So does any team and organization. Each team and organization got to ask this question very, very specifically. That is, what is the most optimal capacity that we can handle without exhausting ourselves, right? People misinterpret this. When we say stretch, guys stretch, team stretch, we try to do a lot of work more than what we can accommodate, we can handle. Then we fail, right? That does not mean you got to do that. What you have to do is focus.
I was just going to say that focus is the first thing.
Absolutely. That's the first superpower we talk about, right? So you got to limit your priorities and then focus on that. I think these are the top 3 cultural characteristics that I would encourage. Number 1, remember OKR is a tool, not a weapon. It's not going to solve all of your problems, right? You got to figure out what specific problems are you trying to solve through OKRs. Second, no dictating. If the dictatorship is present in your organization, you got to fix that. It will not allow. Sorry?
Or micromanaging.
Micromanaging, another word term for that is micromanaging. Yeah. Third is less is more. Pick up a few priorities and focus.
I love that. So we have spoken about OKRs and organizations and companies, but I know this is a very powerful tool that you could also use in your daily life. So how do you use OKRs outside of the business context?
Excellent. Yeah, I love that question. I pretty much love all of your questions. But this is special, right? So this is where, I transition myself from project management, agile coaching into personal coaching as well. So I'm a personal branding coach as well. So, I wrote a book during the first wave of the COVID. It's on Amazon. It's called Double Your Value Through Personal Branding. One of the tools that I included that in that book is OKRs, right? So what I, this is where it fits in. So you come up with your personal vision. You decide in 20 years' time, this is what you want to become. You set a direction, kind of a big, hairy, audacious goal yourself. Then you move into 3 to 5 year goals. They don't have to be OKRs, right? But when you are defining these 3 to 5 year goals, one thing that I recommend is define what matters to you, right? Ask the question. You would say, I want to become this. I want to be a speaker in the next 2 years, 3 years. Then ask another question. What matters to me? Right? Why do I want to become a speaker? So clarify that. Then you go into 1 year goals. Starting from there, you can use OKR. How? You define the objectives as you do, set a direction, go beyond that direction and define the key results. I'll tell you one example, right? So if anyone who is watching this, or even Gina, you wouldn't have come across this. I have an 11-year-old daughter who is keynoting with me, addressing the same professional audiences at her age. She's just 12 years now. We started this when she was 8 years old, right? We got the first speaking gig when she was 9, and she did the first delivery of a speech when she was 9. If you ask me, hey, yes, I understand that, what is the relevance between that and this OKRs? So we set few ambitious, aspirational OKRs for her, right? We discussed that as a family. We agreed that this is what we are going to do. So what I'm saying is, right, so if you want to use OKRs, use that to have exponential growth. Now, if you want to just keep doing what you're doing, you really don't need OKRs. But if you are someone trying to jump one level up, example, think about my 9-year-old daughter, right? How can I think she become a keynote speaker? And she's a singer as well now, right? And even in her singing career, we are actually trying to accelerate her journey, her growth by following OKRs. How? Set the directions, big enough, big directions, right? Be specific on the key results and time box it. So these are magical tools, right? So you are not going to set a very vague goal for the next few years. You're going to say, hey, this is our 12 months goal. These are the specific key results we want to achieve. We would say, I want to let her do 5 different keynotes in 5 universities. One key result. I would say 5 to 7 universities. I have a range there, right? I would come up with another key result like that. So define your key results, thinking of your exponential growth. So don't just be comfortable, right? Use OKRs that way. So what becomes magical, Gita, is the next level. That is the time zone, time horizon that humans are really, really focusing on. That is 3 months, right? You and me know that although we set 1 year goals, we can't look at them and execute them. They're too big, right? Humans are not trained to handle long-term goals. We are having very short memory span. Therefore, our attention span is very small. So the psychology suggests that the maximum time horizon that you need to consider for your goal setting is 3 months. The reason is that, right? That's the optimal time horizon that human can focus on. So from 1 year OKRs, come to 3 months OKRs, and ask the question, if I want to become this person, if I want to achieve this goal in 12 months, what should I achieve in 3 months? This is where you got to focus. This is where you got to be committed. This is where you got to be aligned, right? So what is the alignment? As a family, you can be aligned, right? What my wife is doing, what my daughter is doing, what I am doing can be aligned. So there's a great synergy when that happens, right? Everyone is connected. And from there, define the key results. So to answer your question, Gina, I mean, this is a game changer for anyone who want to grow personally. If you want to optimize your personal brand, if you want to grow as a professional, if you want to grow as an entrepreneur, OKR can be immensely helpful. So go for it.
I love how you said the first thing that you have to do is answer the question, why? And then go from there. Because I think a lot of people don't do that. But
a lot of people don't.
I love that. So Niroshan, based on your experience, what is the number one advice you can provide to our community of lifelong learners who want to include OKRs as part of their daily lives?
Okay, right. Now I got to sum it up into one message.
Excellent. Yeah, one.
Right. Summing up the entire 1 hour talk. Yes, I would do that, right? So this is my stance. If you want to implement OKRs personally or organizationally, fix your basics first. If you have fundamental issues with your basics, never think about OKR adoption. It's not going to work. It can guarantee one thing: waste of your time, waste of your money, waste of your team's energy. Attached to that, what you got to do is focus. Remember, more than 90% of organization would fail because of lacking focus. They lack focus. The moment, say, think about it individually. If you want to, say, be the wealthiest person in the world, you got to focus on it, right? There is no way you can go clubbing 5 days a week and achieve that. There's no way you can waste your time and energy talking about politics and then becoming that, right? So if you want to become the wealthiest person, if not the world, in your city, right? Still you got to focus. Right? So because our environment is so destructive, right? It's distracting us every second, every minute. So you need to learn the art of not being distracted, keeping laser-like focus, right? But before you get there, you got to fix your basics. That's what I would say. So fix your basics, focus.
Niroshan, thank you so much. I love this. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with our lifelong learners. Now, where can we find you? Where can we learn more about you?
Right. If you want to learn about me, LinkedIn is the best place, I would say. I pretty much have daily post done on LinkedIn. I also have a YouTube channel. You can search for Niroshan Madampitige. I have a lot of educational videos on agile adoption, personal branding, and OKR. So go there. And of course, I have a podcast. Search for the name Agile Wisdom Podcast. It's on Anchor and it is on all the platforms, including Spotify.
Awesome, Niroshan. Thank you so much. And one of the first things that I'm going to do is I'm going to go look for your daughter because I want to see her talking. I think that's so cute.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Niroshan, for your time. And I hope to see you soon, and take care.
Yeah, thanks a lot again, Gina. It's definitely my privilege to be here.
We thank those who choose to be here, and we hope this space has been an inspiration to promote the professional growth of our community. If you want to know more about our certifications, visit us at CertiProf.com. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as CertiProf. Let us know in the comments below what other topics you would like us to discuss. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to know about our upcoming episodes. See you in the next episode.